The aftermath brought chaos to Ketha Station. Galactic authorities arrived within hours of the attack. A living Vorn was already significant news, but a Vorn that had defeated armed mercenaries and bonded with a human was something else entirely. Officials from a dozen species descended on the tiny repair shop, demanding explanations, conducting investigations, and generally making everyone's lives more complicated. Cody spent 2 days in a medical facility recovering from his injuries. Lucy was released sooner, having suffered only a concussion and some cuts. She visited him every few hours with updates about the growing crowd outside the shop. Sareth stayed with them. Through it all, the Vorn could not fit inside the medical facility, but it remained docked nearby, its presence radiating calm into Cody's mind. The bond between them had grown stronger since the attack. Cody could feel Sarath's emotions like a warm current beneath his thoughts, and the Vorn seemed to draw comfort from his simple human stubbornness. When Cody was finally released, he found his shop surrounded by ships from across the sector. Representatives waited in formal robes and military uniforms, carrying offers and proposals and barely concealed demands. The news networks had picked up the story, and suddenly the worthless human mechanic was famous. The Velthari Consortium offered citizenship and a private estate on their homeworld. The Gorath military wanted to hire Sareth as a flagship for their fleet, with Cody as its official pilot. The Crick Scientific Collective proposed a research partnership that would make Cody the wealthiest human in the galaxy. Even the Galactic Council sent envoys, suggesting that Sareth and Cody could serve as ambassadors for peace, traveling between systems and promoting cooperation. Cody listened to all of them politely. Then he refused every single offer. The representatives were baffled. They demanded to know why. This was opportunity beyond anything a human could reasonably expect. Cody could elevate his entire species, prove that humanity deserved a seat at the galactic table. Why would he throw that away? Cody looked at the crowd of powerful aliens and saw the same thing he had seen in Drazen's black eyes. They did not care about him or Sareth. They cared about what they could take. The offers were dressed up in pretty language, but underneath, they were just more attempts to use the Vorn as a tool, a weapon, a resource. He said thank you, but no thank you. He and Sareth were going back to work. The repair shop reopened a week later. Lucy had supervised the rebuilding while Cody recovered, and the place looked better than it had before. New equipment, proper lighting, actual security systems. Some of the improvements had been gifts from grateful clients who appreciated Cody's refusal to sell out to the wealthy and powerful. Sareth fit more comfortably now that they had expanded the main bay. The Vorn served as both guardian and partner, its ancient consciousness providing insights that helped Cody solve problems no other mechanic could handle. Ships came from across the sector seeking their services, not because Sareth was a weapon, but because the word had spread about the human, who treated every machine with respect. Korath visited again on a quiet afternoon. The Velthari merchant had watched the whole drama unfold with evident fascination. And now he came bearing a bottle of something expensive and a lot of questions. He asked Cody how he had done it. Not the technical details, but the fundamental thing. How had a primitive human from a primitive species managed to wake a creature that had resisted everyone else for 3 centuries? Cody thought about it for a moment. Then he told Korath about his father, about the small repair shop on an old space station where a dying man had taught his son that every machine had a soul. About the philosophy that fixing something was not about forcing it to work, but about understanding why it stopped and healing the wound. His father had always said the same thing. When something is broken and scared, you do not force it. You kneel down. You offer your hand. You wait. Korath asked if that was really all there was to it. Just kindness? Cody shrugged. He said it was not human genius or some secret technique. It was just decency. The galaxy was full of people trying to take and control and exploit. Sometimes the most radical thing you could do was simply offer help without expecting anything in return. Sarath's voice joined the conversation, echoing in both their minds. The Vorn said that other species had technology far beyond what humanity possessed. They had power and wealth and ancient knowledge. But they had forgotten something along the way. They had forgotten that the things they created, the beings they encountered, the universe itself, deserved respect. Humans were young and primitive by galactic standards. But this one human had remembered what older species had forgotten. And that made all the difference. Karth left with something to think about in the months that followed. The story of Cody and Sarath spread across the galaxy. News networks covered it as a curiosity at first, the strange tale of a human and his pet alien. But the story grew into something more. It became a symbol, a reminder that power was not the only thing that mattered. Other humans began to find their way to Ketha Station. Mechanics and engineers who wanted to learn from Cody. Diplomats who saw a new way to approach alien relations. Ordinary people who just wanted to meet the man, who had kneeled before a monster and found a friend. Cody did not think of himself as special. He was just a mechanic trying to do right by the things in his care. But he noticed that other species started treating humans differently. Not with the contempt of the past, but with something approaching curiosity. If one human could wake a sleeping god with nothing but gentle hands, what else might humanity be capable of? On a quiet evening, 6 months after the attack, Cody sat in his shop with Lucy and Sarath. The day's work was done. The customers had gone home. The station hummed with distant life, but here in this small space, everything was peaceful. Lucy asked what came next. They had turned down wealth and power and fame. They were still just mechanics running a small shop on the edge of nowhere. What was the plan? Cody admitted he did not have one. He never really had. He just tried to do the right thing and hoped it would work out. Sarath rumbled with something like laughter. The Vorn said that was very human of him. No grand strategy, no master plan. Just stubborn decency in the face of everything. Cody smiled and said it had worked so far. Outside the shop window, ships passed through the station's traffic lanes. Merchants and soldiers and explorers from 100 different worlds, all of them chasing something. Power, wealth, glory, survival. The galaxy was vast and ancient and often cruel. But here, in a cramped repair shop, a worthless beast and a worthless human had found something rare. They had found each other. And in finding each other, they had proven something that the galaxy had forgotten. That kindness was not weakness. That gentleness was not stupidity. That sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe was simply kneeling before something broken and saying, "You were there to help." Sarath's eye glowed warm in the gathering dark. Cody leaned against the Vorn's hull, feeling the bond between them pulse with quiet contentment. Lucy started organizing the next day's work schedule, already planning for the customers who would arrive at dawn. It was not a grand ending. There were no parades or monuments. Just 3 friends sharing a peaceful moment in a universe that rarely offered them. And somehow, that was enough. The worthless beast and the struggling mechanic had found their worth in each other. Not through conquest or fortune, but through something older and simpler. Through the radical act of choosing kindness when cruelty would have been easier. Somewhere across the stars, other beings heard their story and wondered if maybe, just maybe, they had been doing things wrong all along, and the galaxy began, slowly, to change. Drazen controlled half of Ketha Station's underworld. He was a Kalthari, a species known for their patience and their cruelty. His skin was pale blue, stretched tight over sharp bones, and his eyes were completely black, like holes cut into his skull. He had built his empire on the principle that everything had a price and everyone could be bought or broken. When he heard about the awakened Vorn, he saw opportunity. living Vorn were legendary. In the old wars, a single bonded Vorn could turn the tide of battles. Their weapon systems were beyond anything modern science could replicate. Their ability to bond with pilots created fighting units of unprecedented efficiency. Military contractors across the galaxy would pay fortunes, entire planetary budgets, for the chance to study one. Drazen made inquiries. He learned about the human mechanic who had refused to sell. He learned about the strange bond that had formed between the worthless creature and its worthless owner. He found the whole situation amusing. Humans were weak. Everyone knew that. This Cody Warren had no guards, no weapons worth mentioning, no political protection. He was alone, except for a young woman who helped in his shop and an ancient alien that had spent 3 centuries running from pain. Taking what he wanted would be easy. The attack came at night. 3 weeks after Sarath's awakening. Cody was sleeping in the small room attached to the back of his shop. Lucy had gone home hours ago. Sarath rested on its platform, eye dimmed but not dark. Systems running quiet but ready. The mercenaries were professionals. They cut the power first, then the communications. 8 armed soldiers moved through the darkness with practiced efficiency, surrounding the shop before Cody even knew something was wrong. He woke to the sound of his door being smashed open. Cody rolled out of bed and grabbed the plasma torch from his workbench, the only thing nearby that could serve as a weapon. He made it 2 steps before a stun blast caught him in the chest and dropped him to the floor. The mercenaries poured into the main shop. Sarath's eye flared to life, amber light flooding the room, but restraining devices were already being attached to its hull. The technology was old, designed specifically for controlling Vorn during the ancient wars. Drazen had paid a fortune for it, but he knew the investment would be worth it. Sarah screamed into Cody's mind, a sound of rage and fear and desperate warning. The Vorn tried to activate its weapons, but the restraints suppressed its systems, locking it in place like chains around a wild animal. Lucy arrived minutes later, drawn by the commotion. She tried to fight her way through the mercenaries to reach Cody, but one of them struck her with the butt of his rifle. She went down hard, blood running from a cut on her forehead. Cody crawled toward her, barely able to move from the stun blast. The mercenaries laughed at his struggle. One of them kicked him in the ribs for entertainment. Then, Drazen himself walked through the ruined door. He moved with the calm confidence of someone who had never been denied anything he wanted. His black eyes swept across the shop, taking in the chaos his people had created. Before settling on the restrained Vorn, he told Cody that this was nothing personal. Business was business. The human had something valuable and refused to sell, which left only one option. Drazen had already arranged a buyer, a weapons development consortium that would pay enough to fund his operations for years. They planned to dissect the Vorn, reverse engineer its technology, and build a fleet of controlled biomechanical warships. Cody tried to speak, but the stun effects made his tongue thick and clumsy. Drazen crouched beside him, amused by his struggle. He said humans were sentimental creatures. They formed attachments to things that did not deserve them. The Vorn was a machine, nothing more, despite what it might pretend to be. Machines did not have feelings. They did not deserve kindness or respect. They existed to be used. He stood and gestured to his people. They began preparing Sarath for transport, attaching cables to the restraining devices. Cody watched helplessly. His body would not obey him. His shop was destroyed. Lucy was unconscious and bleeding. Everything he had worked for, everything he had built, was being taken away by people who saw the galaxy as nothing but resources to be exploited. But he refused to give up. He dragged himself across the floor, leaving a trail of blood from where the mercenaries had beaten him. His muscles screamed in protest. His vision blurred. Every inch was agony. The mercenaries watched with contempt, One of them suggested putting the human out of his misery, but Drazen told him to wait. He wanted to see what the pathetic creature would do. Cody reached Sarath's platform. With the last of his strength, he pulled himself up and placed his hand on the Vorn's hull. His blood smeared against the cold metal, mixing with the scars of old wounds. He could feel Sarath's presence in his mind, trapped and terrified behind a suppression field. The Vorn had spent 3 centuries hiding from pain, and now pain had found it again. It was retreating, pulling back into the darkness that had protected it before, giving up on a galaxy that would never stop hurting it. Cody spoke out loud, forcing words through his damaged throat. He apologized. He said he was sorry for failing to protect Sarath. He said he had promised safety and delivered only more suffering. But he wanted the Vorn to know, before the end, that their time together had mattered to him. For the first time in his life, he had felt like he was doing something important. Sarath had given him that. Drazen rolled his black eyes and ordered his people to remove the human. Then Sarath spoke. The word filled every mind in the room. Not a whisper, but a thunderclap of absolute refusal. The mercenaries stumbled. Drazen took a step back, suddenly uncertain. The restraining devices began to crack. Ancient technology designed to control Vorn during the old wars groaned and screamed as something pushed against it from within. Drazen shouted for his people to reinforce the suppression field, but it was too late. Sarath had spent 300 years running from pain, hiding from a galaxy that saw it as property, waiting to fade away and join its lost partner in death. But this human had kneeled. This human had shown it kindness when kindness seemed extinct. This human was now bleeding on the floor because he had tried to protect something everyone else wanted to exploit. The Vorn was not going to let that stand. The restraint shattered. Sarath rose from the platform, wings unfolding for the first time in centuries, weapon systems coming online with a sound like thunder. Amber light blazed from its eye, filling the shop with radiance. Drazen screamed for his mercenaries to fire, but their weapons were already melting in their hands. Disabled by targeting systems so precise they seemed like magic. The soldiers tried to run, but Sarath was faster, blocking exits with its massive body, trapping them in the building they had invaded. The Vorn could have killed them all. Its weapons were designed for war, capable of destroying battleships. These soft creatures would have been nothing but ash, but it did not kill them. Instead, Sarath disabled their armor, destroyed their weapons, and let them cower in terror against the walls. Following the example of the human who had shown it mercy, the Vorn offered mercy in return. Drazen alone received special attention. Sarath wrapped one massive wing around the crime lord, pinning him in place without crushing him. The Vorn's ancient voice filled his mind with a message. Spread the word. The Vorn has bonded. Anyone who threatens its partner will face consequences. Then Sarath released him, and Drazen fled into the night with his broken mercenaries behind him. In the silence that followed, Cody laughed weakly from the floor. Lucy groaned and started to sit up, clutching her bleeding head. Sarath lowered itself back down and so gently, pressed its massive head against Cody's body. The bond between them pulsed with warmth. The Vorn said it was sorry for taking so long to wake up. Cody said, better late than never. The first sound came on a quiet morning when Lucy was out picking up supplies. Cody was working on the Vorn's wing joints, carefully cleaning away decades of grime and neglect. He had developed a routine over the past weeks. Start at one end of the creature and work his way across, section by section, treating each part with care. It was slow work, but rushing had never been his style. He was humming an old Earth song his father used to sing when he heard something that made him freeze. A low rumble, deep and resonant, vibrated through the metal beneath his hands. Cody pulled back slowly and looked at the Vorn's head. The eyes were still dark, but something was different. The metal plates around the face had shifted slightly, angles changing in ways that seemed almost like expression. He spoke carefully, keeping his voice calm. He said he was here and asked if it could hear him. The rumble came again, longer this time. It resonated through the shop, vibrating tools on the shelves and making the floor hum. Then, without warning, something touched Cody's mind. It was not words at first, just a feeling. Confusion, fear, a desperate, searching awareness reaching out from somewhere deep and dark. The sensation was overwhelming, like standing in the path of a wave. And Cody stumbled backward from the force of it. Then the feeling focused, narrowed, and became a voice. Who kneeled? The words appeared directly in his thoughts, not through his ears. They were ancient and tired, heavy with centuries of pain. Cody took a breath to steady himself. He said his name again and explained that he was a mechanic and a human. He said he had bought the Vorn at auction because he could not stand to see it, treated like garbage. The presence in his mind stirred. Images flashed through Cody's awareness, fragments of memory that were not his own. He saw a beautiful world with crystal towers and purple skies. He saw a tall figure with flowing robes and gentle hands, someone who looked nothing like any species he recognized. He felt the warmth of partnership, of trust so complete it was like sharing a single soul. Then he felt the loss. The battle, the explosion, the moment when the bond shattered and half of the Vorn's consciousness died with its partner. The grief was staggering, a wound that 3 centuries had not healed. Cody found tears running down his face without knowing why. The voice in his mind spoke again, clearer now. It said its name was Sareth. It said it had been bonded to Commander Yellen of the Architect species 312 years ago. When Yellen died, Sareth had chosen to die with her. It had shut down its systems and retreated into the darkness, hoping to fade away and join its partner in whatever came after. But it had not faded. Instead, it had been sold again and again. Owners had tried to force it awake, to hack into its consciousness and override its will. Each attempt was a violation, a reminder that the galaxy saw it as property rather than a person. So it had retreated deeper, building walls around itself, refusing to respond no matter what they did to its body. Cody asked why it was responding now. Sareth was quiet for a long moment. Then it shared another memory. Cody saw himself through the Vorn's eyes, kneeling on the auction platform, speaking softly, promising not to hurt. He felt what Sareth had felt in that moment. Shock, disbelief, a tiny spark of something that might have been hoped on in 300 years. Sareth said Cody was the first being who had kneeled before it, the first who had asked permission, the first who had touched it with gentle hands instead of trying to take what it did not offer. Cody did not know what to say. He had just done what his father taught him. He had not thought it was special. Sareth made a sound that might have been laughter, tired and sad. It said humans were strange creatures. Other species saw the Vorn as tools, weapons, property to be owned and controlled. This human saw it as someone who was hurt and needed help. The shop door opened and Lucy walked in carrying bags of supplies. She stopped when she saw Cody standing in front of the Vorn with tears on his face. She asked what was wrong. Before Cody could answer, Sareth's eye flickered with light. Not the dim, uncertain glow of the previous nights, but a steady amber radiance that filled the room with warmth. The Vorn's massive head lifted slowly from the platform, metal plates shifting and realigning its systems. That had been dormant for centuries came back. Online, Lucy dropped her bags and made a sound that was half scream and half gasp. Wrath turned its great head toward her and spoke into both their minds at once. It apologized for frightening her and said it meant no harm. Then it looked at Cody with eyes that held 3 centuries of sorrow and something new. Something that looked almost like gratitude. Word spread quickly after that. A living Vorn was galactic news. Within days, Ships began arriving at Katha Station, carrying representatives from a dozen species. Scientists wanted to study Sereth. Military officers wanted to recruit it. Collectors offered staggering sums just for the right to say they owned the last awakened Vorn in the galaxy. Korath returned with a consortium of wealthy buyers behind him. They filled Cody's tiny shop with their massive bodies and impressive credit accounts. They made offers that would have set Cody up for life. Enough money to buy his own station if he wanted. Cody refused them all. They demanded to know why. The human had nothing. He lived in poverty, struggling to survive in a galaxy that barely noticed him. Why would he turn down wealth beyond imagination? Cody looked at Sereth, then back at the buyers. He said the Vorn was not his to sell. Sereth was a person, not property. Whatever happened next was the Vorn's choice, not his. The buyers were furious. They threatened and cajoled. They warned that Cody was making powerful enemies. Sarath's voice echoed through the room, silencing everyone. The Vorn said it had chosen to bond with Cody Warren, not because he forced it or tricked it or bought the right to command it, because he showed it something it had forgotten existed in the galaxy. Kindness. The buyers left empty-handed, and Cody sat down heavily on his workbench, trying to process what had just happened. Lucy poured him a drink from the bottle she kept hidden for emergencies. Sereth settled back onto its platform, eye glowing softly in the dim shop. It spoke into Cody's mind alone, private and warm. It said, "Thank you." Cody smiled and said the Vorn was welcome. Then he asked if Sereth was hungry, realized that was a stupid question, and started laughing at himself. For the first time in 300 years, Sereth laughed too. The repair shop was small and crowded, tucked into a forgotten corner of Katha Station, where rent was cheap and customers were rare. Cody had inherited it from his father 5 years ago, along with a collection of tools, a mountain of debt, and a philosophy the machines deserved kindness. Getting the Vorn inside had required bribing 3 dock workers and renting a cargo lift for a full day. The creature barely fit through the main bay doors, and Cody had to rearrange his entire workspace to accommodate it. By the time everything was settled, he had spent credits he did not have on a project that made no sense. Lucy Park arrived the next morning and stopped dead in the doorway. She was 23 years old. Born on Katha Station to human parents who had come seeking opportunity and found only struggle. Lucy had started working for Cody 2 years ago, first as a parts runner and then as an apprentice mechanic. She was smart, quick with her hands, and had absolutely no patience for foolishness. She stared at the massive biomechanical creature taking up half the shop and asked Cody if he had lost his mind. Cody admitted that he might have. Lucy walked around the Vorn slowly, taking in its scarred hull and dark systems. She asked how much he had paid for it. When he told her, she went quiet for a long moment. Then she asked what the plan was. Cody said he did not have one exactly. He just wanted to help it if he could. Lucy reminded him that they had 3 ships waiting for repairs, a parts order due next week, and a landlord who was running out of patience. She asked how fixing a dead alien creature would pay for any of that. Cody did not have a good answer. He just knew that walking away from the Vorn felt wrong in a way he could not explain. Lucy sighed and grabbed her tools. She said he was an idiot, but he was her idiot, and she was not going to let him fail alone. They spent the first week just examining the Vorn. Its biomechanical systems were unlike anything Cody had ever seen. The architects had woven living tissue together with advanced technology in ways that modern science could not replicate. Organic nerves connected to crystal processors. Metal bones supported flesh that generated its own energy. The creature was a masterpiece of engineering, and someone had treated it like garbage. Cody found the evidence of abuse everywhere. Previous owners had installed control implants designed to force obedience. They had cut into the Vorn's neural pathways, trying to hack its consciousness. They had used electric shocks to stimulate responses, leaving burn marks on sensitive tissue. Each attempt to activate the creature had been an assault, and each assault had driven it deeper into shutdown. He started by removing the implants. It was delicate work, requiring steady hands and patience. Lucy helped when she could, but most of the time she handled the regular customers while Cody worked on the Vorn alone. He talked to it while he worked. He knew it probably could not hear him, but his father had always said that machines responded to the voice of someone who cared. So Cody talked. He told the Vorn about Earth, about the blue oceans and green forests that he had only seen in pictures because he had been born on a space station. He talked about his father, a mechanic who had believed that everything deserved gentle hands, who had died 3 years ago from a lung disease that better medicine could have cured, if they had been able to afford it. He talked about being human in a galaxy that did not respect humans, about the constant struggle to prove that his species was worth something, about the loneliness of being far from home in a universe that thought you were primitive. Days turned into weeks. Customers came and went. Lucy kept the shop running, while Cody devoted every spare moment to the Vorn. Korath visited on the 15th day. He was a Velthari merchant, one of the wealthier traders on Ketha Station, and he had a reputation for collecting unusual things. He walked into the shop with his forearms folded across his chest and examined the Vorn with open interest. He told Cody that word had spread about his purchase. A human buying a dead Vorn had become something of a joke in the trading circles. Korath said he was willing to offer a fair price for the creature. His buyers would strip it for parts, extracting whatever value remained in its biomechanical components. Cody would make back his investment plus a small profit. Cody refused. Korath tilted his head, confused. He asked what use a dead Vorn was to a struggling mechanic. The creature would never wake. Everyone knew that. Cody was throwing away his future on a corpse. Cody said the Vorn was not a corpse. It was hurt and scared, and it had been hurt and scared for a very long time. He was not going to give up on it just because everyone else had. Korath laughed, but there was something almost like respect in his voice. He said humans were strange creatures, sentimental and foolish. Then he left, warning Cody that his offer would not stay open forever. That night, after Lucy went home and the shop fell quiet, Cody sat beside the Vorn, as he had done every night since bringing it here. He leaned against its massive hull, feeling the cold metal through his shirt, and talked about nothing important. He described his day. He mentioned a stubborn engine coupling that had finally come loose. He complained about the price of coolant. Then he said something he had not planned to say. He told Vorn that he understood what it was like to be treated as worthless. Humans heard it all the time. Too primitive, too young, too weak to matter. He had spent his whole life being told that he was not enough. But his father had taught him that worth was not something others gave you. It was something you found in yourself, often in the moments when everyone else had given up. He said he was not going to give up on the Vorn, even if it never woke. Even if this whole thing bankrupted him and ruined his life, he would keep trying, because that was what gentle hands were for. The shop was silent except for the hum of distant station systems. Cody closed his eyes and let himself rest against the cold metal. He did not see the Vorn's outer shell shift slightly. Leaning a fraction closer to where he sat, he did not notice the single point of light that flickered in the darkness of its eye. Dim and uncertain but present, he did not hear the ancient systems beginning to warm. Power flowing through pathways that had been cold for 3 centuries. But somewhere in the vast consciousness of the wounded creature, something was listening. Something that had forgotten what kindness sounded like was beginning to remember. The human talked to it every night. The human touched it without violence. The human asked for nothing. In the depths of its being. The Vorn began to wonder if maybe, after all this time, it was safe to wake up. Keva Station smelled like rust and desperation. The massive trading hub floated at the edge of civilized space, far from any government that cared about laws or decency. Here, anything could be bought or sold. Ships, weapons, information, and sometimes living things that should never have price tags attached to them. Cody, Warren stood at the back of the auction hall, trying to look like he belonged. He was a human, which meant most aliens in the room looked at him like he was a pest that had wandered in from the street. Humanity had only joined galactic society 40 years ago. They were newcomers, primitives barely worth noticing. Cody had grown used to the sneers and whispered insults. He had bills to pay and a repair shop that was 3 months behind on rent. The auction hall was packed with buyers from dozens of species. Tall Velthury merchants with their gray skin and 4 arms stood near the front, their credit accounts bottomless. Insectoid cricks clicked their mandibles as they examined the catalog. Massive Goroth warriors leaned against the walls, hired muscle for the wealthy buyers who feared theft. Cody was here for scraps. His shop survived on salvage, broken parts that nobody else wanted. He fixed alien ships for a living, and he was good at it. His father had taught him that every machine deserved respect, that even the most broken thing could work again if you treated it right. That philosophy did not pay well, but it let Cody sleep at night. The auctioneer was a Sethrai, a snake-like creature with scales that shimmered under the harsh lights. Its voice echoed through speakers as it moved through the lots. Decommissioned shuttle sold. Creative navigation computers sold. Hull plating from a scrapped freighter sold. Cody watched and waited. He needed engine parts, specifically coolant regulators for Velthury ships. His one steady customer was a Velthury trader named Morith, who kept promising bigger contracts if Cody could keep his ancient freighter running. Then the auctioneer announced, Lot 47. And everything changed. The massive doors at the back of the hall slid open. Workers guided a hovering platform into the room, and on that platform sat something that made the entire crowd go quiet. It was a creature, but also a machine. Its body was the size of a small shuttle, covered in dark metallic plates that looked almost like scales. It had a shape that suggested something between a dragon and a whale, with wings folded tight against its sides and a long head that ended in a closed beak-like mouth. Scars covered every surface. Old burns, weapon impacts, and crude repairs marked its hide like a map of suffering. A VORN. Cody had heard stories about them. The Vorn were biomechanical beings created by the architects, a civilization that had vanished thousands of years ago. They were living ships, capable of bonding with pilots and forming partnerships that made them nearly unstoppable in battle. They were also incredibly rare. Most had died with their bonded pilots, unable to survive the grief of losing their partners. This one looked dead. Its eyes were dark. Its system showed no power readings. It sat on the platform like a statue, beautiful and terrible and completely still. The auctioneer made a sound like a sigh. The Sethrani explained that this Vorn had been passed through 17 owners over the past century. None had managed to wake it. Engineers had tried everything, from neural stimulation to complete system rebuilds. Nothing worked. The creature remained dormant, unresponsive, worthless. The crowd lost interest quickly. A dead Vorn was just scrap metal, and not even good scrap. The biomechanical nature of its body made it nearly impossible to harvest for parts. The auctioneer set the starting bid low, almost insultingly so. A few buyers made half-hearted offers, probably hoping to sell it to a museum or a collector of oddities. The price crawled upward slowly. Cody stared at the Vorn and could not look away. He saw the scars and recognized them. Not the specific wounds, but what they meant. This creature had been forced, violated, tortured by people trying to make it obey. The crude repairs were not healing. They were patches slapped on by owners who saw the Vorn as property to be fixed, not a being to be helped. His father's voice echoed in his memory. When something is broken and scared, you do not force it, son. You kneel down. You offer your hand. You wait. Cody checked his credit balance. He had just enough for the coolant regulators he needed, plus a small reserve for emergencies. If he spent it on the Vorn, he would have nothing. Morith would be furious. The shop might not survive another month. He raised his hand and bid everything he had. The room went quiet again, but this time with confusion. A few aliens laughed. A Velthari merchant turned to look at him with what might have been pity. The human was throwing away his credits on a corpse dot. No one else bid. Why would they? The auctioneer declared Lot 47 sold to the human in the back. Cody walked forward to claim his purchase while whispers followed him. Stupid human. Foolish primitive. Wasted money on worthless garbage. The workers transferred ownership codes to his account and told him where to pick up the Vorn. They handled the paperwork with bored efficiency. Clearly eager to be done with the unsellable lot. Cody asked them to wait. He wanted a moment alone with his purchase. The workers shrugged and stepped back. What did they care? The human could talk to his expensive mistake. All he wanted. Cody approached the Vorn slowly. Up close, it was even more impressive. The metallic scales had a depth to them, layers of material that seemed to shift in the light. The scars looked painful, even on a creature that showed no signs of feeling anything. He stopped a few feet away and did something that made the nearby workers exchange confused glances. Cody kneeled. He lowered himself to one knee, bowed his head slightly, and placed his hand gently on the platform near the Vorn's massive head. He did not touch the creature itself. He waited, offering his presence without demanding anything. Then he spoke, keeping his voice soft. He said his name was Cody Warren. He said he was a mechanic from a planet called Earth, which was very far away and not very important in the grand scheme of things. He said he did not know if the Vorn could hear him, but he wanted it to know that he was not going to hurt it. He was not going to force it to do anything. He had bought it because something in his heart told him that the creature deserved better than being passed around like broken furniture. He promised that if the Vorn never woke up, he would find it a peaceful place to rest. And if it did wake up, he would ask permission before anything else. The workers laughed quietly among themselves. The human was talking to scrap metal. Typical primitive behavior. Cody ignored them. He stayed on his knee for a long moment, his hand resting near the Vorn's head, his eyes closed. He did not see the tiny flicker of light deep within the creature's dark eye. He did not hear the faint hum that vibrated through ancient systems for the first time in 300 years. He did not know that somewhere in the Vorn's vast and wounded consciousness, something was stirring, something that recognized gentleness, something that remembered what respect felt like. When Cody finally stood and arranged for transport to his shop, he felt strangely peaceful, despite having just bankrupted himself. He did not know why. He could not explain the warmth in his chest or the certainty that he had done the right thing. Behind him, the Vorn remained still and dark on its platform. But deep inside, in places that scanners could not reach and engineers could not access, a single thought formed for the first time in centuries. Someone kneeled.